Trojan family, what's up, man? USCJ here. Listen, this is the top of the morning. I hope everybody is getting ready to get up, get out, and make some things happen this morning. Listen, I got to talk about the defensive line and why I think this defensive line is about to be a powerful defensive line. I think this is not going to be hype. This is not what I think that, I'm hoping it to be, but I'm thinking of actual facts. And we're going to talk about it. I think everything starts with our defensive line. I think everything starts with some of the guys that are returning on our defensive line. So let's get ready to talk about some of these guys real quick. I really believe it's straight up go time. It's on and popping. It's on and cracking. Let's break down this defensive line and talk about some of the guys that are foundational pieces that are coming back, along with transfer portal guys, as well as guys that redshirted. Let's take a look at some of these guys real quick. Let's go. So honestly, for me, when it's talk about the defensive line, it starts with foundational pieces, and those guys, what I consider to be foundational pieces, I believe those guys that are coming back to contribute, guys that has been developed and guys that will continue to develop. And I'm starting with a guy like Devin Tompkins. I believe he made big time strides last season. Prior to that, he was almost non-existent, but when he came back last season, I believe that he made incredible strides. He looked extremely powerful, extremely explosive, coming off that defensive end spot / defensive tackle, because they kind of move him and Gavin Meyer around. But I think, look, man, when you talk about Devin Tompkins, he's going to be one of those guys that I believe is set up to really explode this coming season based on some of the pieces that were brought around him. Of course, you guys know Devin Tompkins was one of those guys they considered to be like one of the most versatile guys around. You know, when you're talking about athletically, this guy was a basketball player, transitioning into this defensive end spot, slash edge spot. And I think now when you're talking about putting on the weight, getting ready to be a defensive tackle guy / defensive end, this is a very versatile guy. I love what I see from him. So look, man, it's straight up go time when you talk about a guy like Devin Tompkins. Of course, you guys know, man, Anthony Lucas, man, all of us very high on Anthony Lucas, very highly recruited, coming out of Texas A&M, transferred to USC. When Eric Henderson and them got there, just like Devin Tompkins, Anthony Lucas, was a guy that really, you could tell he excelled. You could tell his explosiveness was different. You could tell his lateral movement. You could tell his movement, period, was totally different once this new coaching staff got into play. And Devin Tompkins, Anthony Lucas are two guys that I consider to be foundational pieces that are returning, that's going to help contribute to this depth. Now, another guy that I consider to be a foundational piece is going to be a guy like Braylon Shelby. You guys know Braylon Shelby, explosive, coming off that edge spot, and he's one of the most athletic guys that you're going to find around when you talk about edge guys. And I think he's set up this year to have an explosive season. Now, some might say, Jay, what about Cam Fountain? I'm getting ready to talk about Cam Fountain. But I believe when the rotation kicks in, I believe that all of these guys are going to have it's going to be an advantage for all of these guys, because they're going to have plenty opportunity to be able to move and grow. I don't believe it's just going to be one guy in there for the most part, based on the conference, based on the physicality of the conference, and based on how the coaches like to rotate. I believe we could see some sets for a guy like Braylon Shelby, some sets for some downs for a guy like Cameron Fountain. So I think that's the kind of rotation we probably will see. Both of those guys are explosive. You guys know I absolutely love both of them. Now, when you talk about Cam Fountain, he was one of those guys at the end of the season last year that really, given the injuries, that really started coming on strong. You could kind of tell, him and Sam Green were both, you guys remember they were both coming in due to Anthony Lucas, due to some other guys' injuries. Jamil Muhammad, I guess, somewhat kind of faded a little bit, so you started seeing other guys starting to come in. And when you got a guy like Cam Fountain that has the size, power, and speed that he has, listen, he started looking like he was an absolute dominant player. And you cannot dismiss that. I'm not going to dismiss that. So Cam Fountain, along with Braylon Shelby, those two guys, man, you're talking about coming off the edge, are going to be a major problem for anybody in this Big Ten Conference. And these are some of the guys that I consider to be some guys that are foundational pieces. Now, if you guys thought I was going to forget about Kobe Pepe and him not being part of a foundational piece as relates to this defensive line, you're wrong. I think Kobe Pepe stayed the course. I think he's a part of this team. I think he's a part of this rotation, and he's going to be one of those guys from a defensive front standpoint that is going to be a rotational guy, but he's part of the foundational piece that's already been established. When I'm talking about foundational, I'm talking about the culture that's being set. I'm talking about the work ethic that's being set. Everything that's involved with establishing chemistry as well. All those things matter when you're talking about foundation being established. He's a foundational piece, and I think Coach Henney, Coach Newitt, those guys got their hands on him, and I think it's straight up go time. Now, you got a guy that everybody's going to talk about. I consider him to be a super freshman. Everybody knows that, Jakeem Stewart. But real quick, let me get on another guy, Jadi Abasari, who's also a super freshman. He's going to be a redshirt freshman. I think he redshirted. But however, you saw penetration with Jadi Abasari. You saw him getting in there, moving and grooving. Big time guy out of Minnesota, 6'5", 300 pounds, and he's going to be a monster. And what I love about all of our guys is these guys are not just big, they chisel. And I love that about them. I think that guy like him, Jadi Abasari, is going to improve from year 1 to year 2. He's in the system. He's I consider him part of a foundational piece that's coming in, moving and grooving. So look, man, you guys can drop the comments. You guys can tell me what you think. But USC, when you're talking about Jadi Abasari, it's straight up go time. Now, let me get on this guy. Big time Jakeem Stewart, who appears to be leading right now in these drills. Look, his body speaks for itself. His presence speaks for itself. His name speaks for itself. However, I'm putting Jakeem Stewart in the same category as I put in a guy like Hassan Longstreet. When we're talking about freshmen coming in and play, I think the speed of the game is so much different from high school to college that you have to adapt to that. Now, does that mean that he's not going to play? No, it's the same way with Hassan Longstreet. I believe you work him in, you give him packages and move and groove that way. I think the same thing needs to be applied to a guy like Jakeem Stewart. Why? Because the physicality of that position, the nature of that position, these guys are older guys, essentially grown men. He hasn't played since his sophomore year, so let him get bigger, stronger, faster, and then work him in gradually. And if he explodes, he explodes. If he is that guy, he's that guy. But you don't want to prematurely put this guy in and kind of stunt his development. So that's kind of my idea with him. But I think he is an absolute superstar. I think he has that it factor. I know he has the work ethic because we see what he's doing here in the drills. So look, man, you guys can drop the comments. You guys can tell me what you think. Now, there are a couple of other freshmen as well. You see one here, Floyd Boucard. I think he's going to be a problem. His body, his explosiveness, his size, I think it speaks for itself. It's straight up go time. It's on and popping. He was committed to Oklahoma, now committed to USC, got in there in the springtime, and it's straight up go time, man. So look, you guys can drop the comments. You guys can tell me what you think, but USC has some big body guys, man, and I think they're going to be absolutely moving and grooving on this defensive line. Floyd Boucard is one of those sleeper guys that I think that can absolutely explode on this defensive line. Don't forget also, he was committed to Oklahoma. Don't forget about Cash Jacobson out of Oklahoma. He's coming in as well. Don't forget about Gus Cordova, who will be coming in from the state of Texas. So look, man, you talking about USC's defensive line as a whole. I know these coaches right now are they can't wait to get ready to move and groove with this young talent that USC currently has. Now, these guys are going to be a problem when you're talking about this first one, Keyshawn Silver. This guy is a monster. He's a space eater. I was reading, I believe it was an SEC article, and they were talking about USC basically getting a bang for their buck when you're talking about a guy like Keyshawn Silver. He's a space eater, and it's not always going to be shown in the numbers. However, he's going to free up linebackers. He's going to create space, move those offensive line around to be able to cause major disruption. Keyshawn Silver is a problem. He's a true 300-pounder. He's over 300 pounds, and I think that USC got bang for their buck. I believe they got a bargain. When you're talking about a big body like that on the inside, we're absolutely going to be a problem on the defensive line. Now, the last one we want to talk about real quick, we're going to talk about, and let me give an honorable mention. I almost forgot to put Carlon Jones in there. I just thought about it. I didn't forget him. He is, you guys know, he's a 4-star guy. He's a guy that I absolutely love. He was a guy that was on my show. And I think Carlon Jones, coming off an injury, I think Carlon Jones is going to be a bounce back player. I think he's going to be a physical. He's another 300-pounder, 6'4", out of Bay, Texas. And he will be a guy that is going to be absolutely part of this rotation when you talk about the USC defensive line. Now, I got to get to this last guy. When you look at his body speaks for itself. He looks like an action figure, some kind of, and he's coming from Georgia the same way Bear Alexander, but their body structure, no disrespect to Bear, the body structure is totally different. You look at his shoulders, you look at how wide they are, you look at his work. I've been watching like little videos that he's been doing, and look, man, this kid is absolutely moving and grooving. When you talk about on this defensive line, he's very, very, he's a physical guy, and he's going to create space the same way we got a guy like Keyshawn Silver. You don't necessarily even expect to get the tackles, although he will have tackles, but we're talking about space eaters. We want to make sure you create all types of space, free up those linebackers, even let those defensive ends come crashing down, and you do that, the USC is going to be winning. And I think that Josh Jarrett is going to be one of those guys. He's the super transfer that we're talking about. He's going to be one of those guys coming in, moving and grooving. Hit me in the comments, man. I'm out of here, man. This USCJ32 on Instagram, USCJ32 on Twitter. Fight on, fight on, fight on.